I'm Yvonne.
And I'm Myrna.
My name is Joyce.
I'm Hilary Wolfe. I was born in St Albans, Hertfordshire, and I currently live in New York.
My name is Mahbuba, and I'm a resident in Westminster.
And I know Myrna since the 70s, middle 70s. We were in the fashion business together.
And Yvonne, being a very creative woman, she worked with our business around Portobello and Ladbroke Grove area at the time of the hippie revolution. But today we're looking at marriage. Because through looking at marriage, we found out a lot about attitudes to women and to men. Now, tell me, why did you get married?
Well, funny enough, I got married because I was pressured. You know, I was 28 at the time when I got married, quite late.
Or again, I felt some pressure from some family members.
When I was in love and thinks that I would like to be with this person. I think there's a certain security when you are get married to somebody.
It's all about having families, extending your families, but I think it's kind of marriage is something very much ingrained in the Islamic culture.
So one of the reasons I got married is because I realised that I might not have been able to support myself. And that, I guess, worried me.
Well, I got married because I was pregnant with my son, and my partner at the time, his father, was so shocked that when I was pregnant and not married, that he was walking distractedly around London and nearly got killed by a bus. So the man I married felt, I can't have my father's death on my hands, let's get married. So that was the reason I got married.
We decided to get married in London because Italy, at that time, you would not divorce. It's interesting, we thought about divorce just in case.
But I was desperate to get married. I had to have the ring on my finger. I didn't really want the ring. And he bought it for me, but I didn't want a diamond ring.
Well, I never wore a ring. I refused to be bound by the man. So that was interesting, you mentioned a ring. A man didn't have to wear a ring, just a woman, to show that she belonged to the man. How would you say the marriage worked out? Were there surprises in the marriage that you hadn't anticipated?
Well, I did not expect to clean floors. Normally, then in Africa, you always get a help.
So my married life, the way I imagined, we would travel every 6 months. We would go and do charity work. We'd open an orphanage. We would like all of those things. But it's like I'm limited because I have caring responsibilities. Because my mom is, as you know, she has disability, and my mom didn't feel comfortable with anyone, so she asked me to live with her.
Well, I felt tired, you know. For a start, he gave up his job.
So I'm asking you now, what did you think marriage was going to be like?
The romance part of it, because he was living in New York, I was in England, and then we would meet up and go somewhere else. It was ever so exciting. I was loving it.
So I think my marriage has been shaped with, and my mom has been the center of attention in my marriage, if you like.
I remember when I did get married to him, I had to visit the priest. I had some religious lessons, you know, of how to behave as a wife and everything. And I thought, you know, I just wanted to get married. I didn't want the religion side of it coming through. What did he have to do with my life, this priest? It irritated me.
What happened when you finally lived together?
Okay, we'd never really lived together, a little bit at my mother's house, but we'd never really lived together, you know, paying bills, living, cooking, doing those things. So it was very, very different. I really don't think that we knew each other that well.
But what made you think that a man would take care of you?
Don't know, I guess those old-fashioned
Old-fashioned
you know,
attitudes.
that attitude that my dad had. Don't worry about it. You don't need to get good grades. You don't need that. You don't need to be educated.
I never had that. Even though my father was like your father, don't worry about education, you're going to get married. That I was so full of energy, and it was just self-evident I could start a business with a few others. that it felt I was in charge of my own destiny with money.
Well, he had a bigger job, and then I started temping. So temping, you don't earn a lot of money. So of course, he was paying for all the bills anyway. And that was at that time. The man was supposed to take care.
Oh, yes?
Yes, to look after the house.
Oh, yes.
At that time, as far as I'm concerned, yes.
As far as I'm concerned, that wasn't the case. How did it impact you that in the 70s the pill was developed and feminism was on the rise? How much did you feel a connection to it?
In a Catholic country, the pill was not allowed at that time.
What did you think when you heard that this contraceptive pill had been developed?
Yeah, we talked about it. And of course it wasn't allowed in Italy, like divorce.
Because I grew up, most of my earlier education was in Bangladesh.
Yes.
So I never actually had sex education. I was like really quite naive in that sense. My religion played a, big role. So it's like we are not allowed to be physically intimate before marriage.
What
So-
about contraception then? Is that allowed?
Because, yeah, it is allowed. So a lot of even people who are married, they don't want to have children. They use contraception.
Even in Bangladesh?
Even in Bangladesh.
For the ladies
Yeah,
as well.
even in Bangladesh to have, to use it as a birth control.
So both of us were female powerhouses, really. We both had businesses. In a way, the women in my business, my fashion business, were the predominant ones. The men, they handled the money, but in fact it was the women that made the money.
But it was very male dominant.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because I remember doing this order for these Dutch people, and the order wasn't ready, and it was the man that was saying, I'm not taking the order, and the wife felt sorry for us because we were working flat out to get the order together, and he was just dismissing us.
Well, the same with my business, The Fool, that when the woman I worked with, Ruthie, when we went round to wholesalers, there were 99.9% men. And we'd go in as two young hippie-looking ladies, and we'd be followed around the shop. They assumed we were thieves.
Oh yes.
They couldn't possibly imagine that you were the business proprietor. And they'd be saying, it's wholesale only, ladies. And we'd get out the money and say, we were going to shop here with you, but because you're so rude, we walked out. But it was so male. They would have posters on the wall of nude ladies.
You were terrified when you went into the back of the shop because they would flash.
What?
Yes, they would flash.
Take the thing out.
I mean, yeah, but that was quite common.
When I got married in the end, I had an assumption as a naive young lady that somehow being faithful would be part of the package. I was rudely awakened. It was not part of the package. Was that part of your thinking, that marriage would mean the man wouldn't mess around? Was that part of your thinking?
No. The majority of the men, they do mess around.
That you know.
I know. You get approached by so many men, married.
You got approached.
Yeah, in general, I say. They're married, they're happy with you think that they're happy with their wives, and then they approach you. They want to go out with you, and they know that you are married.
Is it acceptable in any way for a man in an Islamic marriage to have an affair? Is that acceptable?
No, it's totally prohibited. If that can be proven, then there are very, very strict way of dealing with that. In England, unfortunately, men, women, they all get away. Personally, I wouldn't do that, because this is just me, because I have self-respect.
What impact did it have that both of you were from different racial backgrounds? You're a black lady and he's a white man. At a time in the 70s, it was very racist in Britain.
At the time, it didn't bother me at all. And we never had any problem with the colour or being called a name. Also living in Italy, they might be curious, but they never said anything.
How come nothing happened with you?
Maybe I just been lucky.
So what are your expectations now in this long marriage for yourself, for your own well-being?
In time, I grew to like him, to love him. We just go along with it every day.